Hello, this talk is Al-Qaeda is the West versus Al-Qaeda, a military history part 2. I would recommend you have a look at a book by Tom Burgeon, called Holy War Inc. It was updated since the tragic events of 9/11. Uh, the 9/11 didn't just happen out of the blue. There was a mounting scale of attacks. As I mentioned in the first video, the Al Qaeda started off in political assassinations using small arms and rifles, but the real terrifying aspect to this organisation is the way that it infiltrates Islamic countries' intelligence agencies. They have had plots to kill Saddam Hussein and the Libyan leader Gaddafi. They've backed Hamas because Hamas is a Sunni Palestinian group, while they are Wahhabists. So they've made links with many different terrorist organisations. For instance, in Pakistan, they are not only just involved with the Taliban, and the Taliban simply means students. So you can tell how they're orientated towards students of both Islamic and the normal university systems around the world. Recently, there was raids on several universities in this country with Al Qaeda teams and cells in those universities. So that's the level they work on. They're looking for westernized Muslims who they can then radicalize, bring them away from their families, and then train them, and then give them some field service. That is, that they send them off to training camps and to fight in places like Afghanistan and Iraq. But the real problem for them in Iraq is the influence of Iran, and the asymmetric warfare that Iran is conducting against Al Qaeda there through its proxies of Shia terrorist groups, and also the effects of the United States and Great Britain, particularly the MI6 and the SAS in Iraq. But let's go further back to before 9/11. The first indication of a major attacks against the West was the bombings of in the World Trade Center in the 1990s during the Clinton era. There they tried to use a truck bomb to blow out the supporting structures in the car park area, which is in the basement of the World Trade Center. Now, that was also linked back to a Egyptian intelligence officer who Al Qaeda had flipped. So you can see the Egyptian origins of Al Qaeda, although they're most well known for having an association with Pakistan's Inter-Service Intelligence Agency and the Saudi Arabian royal family. However, they conducted a major operations against the American military bases in Saudi Arabia just after the first Gulf War. Now, it was the first Gulf War that Osama bin Laden said when he said on Al Jazeera, and I'll get comments saying that he wasn't responsible for 9/11. He was responsible for 9/11, and it's not the fake bin Laden tape with the guy with a beard and a wedding ring. This was bin Laden on Al Jazeera saying he did 9/11. Okay. He said one of the main reasons was the first Gulf War, that there was such an American presence in Saudi Arabia rather than Iraq, because Saudi Arabia is where Mecca is and where Medina is, which is the key Islamic centres, the most holy place on earth, because it's where Muhammad is said in the book of the Quran to ascend to heaven with the Archangel Gabriel. It's all religious stuff, right? I'm not getting into it. But AlQueada's major bombing of the Kenyan embassy, US Kenyan embassy, also their attack on the US frigate off the Gulf of Aden, and their assassination after 9/11 of Richard Pearl, a journalist. It's all part of a pattern of escalation, and of course then the 9/11 attacks themselves. Now the 9/11 attack by Al-Qaeda was planned for up to 5 years before, and Al-Qaeda has got people in the ISI, that is well known. Okay, so the ISI is a relationship with the CIA, in that the CIA supported the ISI and elements that were then linked to Al-Qaeda during the Afghan war against the Soviets. That does not mean that the CIA had anything to do with 9/11 or anything like that. That's wild theories, okay? Al-Qaeda is a massive organisation. We're talking about an organisation with an annual income of just Bin Laden alone, without any of the other illegal organised crime activities that they're doing, with the massive amounts of drugs trading that come from Afghanistan. 90% of the world's heroin comes from Afghanistan. But Bin Laden himself has an annual income of $43 billion. He's got hundreds of thousands of operatives and thousands of foot soldiers in the form of the Taliban and Al-Qaeda and foreign fighters. Did he really need any more support? It would have been common knowledge in the ISI that Operation Vigilant Freedom was a major exercise that the United States was doing with its ally Canada for a Cold War scenario against Russia, and that happened every year. The dates on which it happened changed, but the ISI would have been aware that it would have happened on the 11th of September 2001. Al-Qaeda would have surely have found out about this beforehand, right? And then conducted their operation on that day. That would be logical, wouldn't it? And it would be common sense for a terrorist organisation. We're dealing with a terrorist organisation that has professors of university standard, people who are ex-military people, and ex-intelligence people from the Islamic countries inside it. Right, they would have found out about something as large as Vigilant Freedom, and that's why they knew that there was only 5 planes on the eastern seaboard of the United States protecting it. That's why they chose that time to do their attack. Now, as for the way the buildings fell, you can't tell whether there was a truck bomb in the basement of those towers. There was just too much destruction. Too many vehicles were shattered and destroyed by the buildings when they fell. But it would be also naive to think that the effect of the planes hitting had no effect on the buildings. The planes hitting the buildings was the chief reason they fell down. You're talking about 40 tons of aerolized, oxygenized aircraft fuel put into a building at that height, fed by the Gulf Stream, fed by the winds at the time, which were quite high at that height of the buildings. And that would have caused the fire to spread, and it only needs one floor to give way, and then the building is not supporting its own weight. The building is then collapsing. We'll do a part 3 on where Al-Qaeda is now, and how we are defeating it.